dynamics coming right through there. There is no way that would happen without the intervention of the federal government. And one is wondering just how the Nigerian Governors Forum are going to take this on board, because, you know, there was that letter from the Governors Forum, you know, saying one or two things about what the office of the Attorney General, you know, is doing, or the federal government is doing, illegal deductions and all of those things. And then now this is the response of the federal government. I'm wondering how this is going to end.
Well, we don't want to run ahead of ourselves now and begin to ask questions, even though there are very, very important questions to be asked. Yeah. And one of which would be, okay, so are you saying that we're no longer entitled to what is left of the $418 million Paris Club? Well, it's a question.
Okay, well, let's listen to, you know, this conversation that Chamberlain is going to be having with someone representing the Nigerian Governors Forum. Chamberlain.
Oh, yes, indeed. I've got Mr. Abdulrazaque Bello-Barkindo here. He is the head media and publicity of public affairs of Nigeria Governors Forum. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today, and good to see you.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Well, good to see you too.
This is just becoming intractable because, I mean, right from one of the most recent times when the promissory note was issued, there was a hue and cry. Governors spoke up saying, look, what's going on? How could you do this? But now, the minister has reignited this controversy. In fact, he goes down memory lane, highlighting what transpired, how he came into this. And incidentally, some of the narratives there also, he corroborates what some of the consultants had also said previously when we invited them on the program. So if you could go ahead and tell us, what is going on with this?
It's such a shame. I mean, I feel very morally burdened to be discussing this thing all over again, because this is a matter that's sub judice. Case is in court. We're talking about the Attorney General of the Federation, who is the chief lawmaker in this country. And I would have thought that the most reasonable thing to do is to let these cases, you know, just end up in court so that they would have a logical conclusion. But what we're going through is that the consultants, so to say, do not even need a personal lawyer or some private lawyer. They're being defended by the federal government. And if you remember...
You mean the AGF?
Yes, the AGF. He represents the federal government. And if you remember, only 2 days ago or 3, at the FEC, I read somewhere where someone said that the president had given an express order that all deductions be discontinued until the cases are concluded. So why are...
So they're in disagreement on that? The AGF's position and the president's position?
That's what I noticed. I mean, I'm not trying to imply anything, but if the president gives an order, and he is President Muhammadu Buhari, and some attorney general comes, at least this government is known as the Buhari government. It's not the Malami government. If Buhari gives an order, I believe that Buhari should be respected. But that's not what we're seeing. The point is, all the consultants we're talking about are lawyers. Why are they afraid of the court of law?
But for some of what the AGF narrated when he says that the governors and the consultants, after the case, they had a they came to a consensus on how to proceed on that. And one of the consultants said that was in November 2018, while he was during the pendency of the suit. And the governors agreed that we will go ahead. In fact, the minister says they already paid some of it. So how come all of a sudden they say, no, stop? What changed?
Chamberlain, the governors of 2018 are no longer the governors in power today. The chairman of the Governors Forum in 2018 was Yari. There is a new chairman. And in the among the governors...
Isn't it a continuum?
There is a continuum, of course. And among the governors are, you know, serious legal luminaries. There are SANs and all sorts of lawyers. And they have reviewed these cases and discovered that there are no basis for these payments. And we're human. We can make mistakes. And if you realize, look, the fact that you have been paid some money falsely or wrongly does not vitiate the fact that that money can be recovered. So what the governors are saying is that the first payments were in error, gross error. And they're saying, let's conclude this case and the other monies would also be retrieved. So they're relying on the fact that some payment had been made, so the remaining payment must be made, is not tenable.
So when the minister, the AGF, says that when the Governors Forum requested the refund of the Parry Club debt, part of the component was payment for the consultants. What does that mean?
I hate to say that is untrue. There is no component that compels the Governors Forum to pay anything, and there is no agreement between the consultants collectively and governors collectively. One of the consultants had a contract with 13 states, and now he wants money deducted from 36 states. I don't see how that's going to happen. Another of the consultants was an employee of the ALGON, Association of Local Governments of Nigeria.
Yes, ALGON contracted him. He
the
did
ALGON, he was actually, in fact, the EFCC had done an investigation and described his being part of this payment as a fraud. Besides that, another lawyer is also accusing him of fraudulently using his efforts to collect money from the NGF. So there are all sorts of cases surrounding this, this matter. And I believe that the most responsible thing to do is to allow these things to go to whatever court. One of the consultants had also been to the Supreme Court and lost this case. So he's still now expecting that payments will be made to him. And he's part of this $480 million. I mean, it's a lot of money if you look at it, because the universities are shut. A lot of people have not been paid their pensions. And some, juggernauts somewhere are expecting that the federal government would give them $480 million from states' money. Remember that this money is not just kept aside to pay this $480 million. No, the Paris-London money has been expended. These, consultants and their attorney general, because this is not the attorney general of the Federal Republic of Nigeria anymore, for him to be defending private concerns, they're expecting these monies to be deducted from state accounts at source over, I think, 52 or 58 months. So that's, unheard of. That there is no evidence of work done. That's what the Governors Forum is asking for. Please, present evidence of the work you had done. Some of them said they had constructed primary health care institutions around the country. Others said they have constructed boreholes. These are physical things that you can show.
But what about the ones that they say that, well, we actually found that some of those funds that were supposed to have been paid was paid to a consultant that was not existing, that was never part of anything. So they discovered that, because if they didn't discover it, those monies would have gone completely elsewhere and the governors would not even have a him. So all they're asking for is a certain percentage of that money which they found that the governors benefited from.
That is untrue. When this payment was approved, there were all sorts of claims by different consultancies, including lawyers and accountants. And all of them were compiled under a committee and verified. Those that were verified were paid. And even those who did not present their issues before the Nigeria Governors Forum were invited to present their issues so that their efforts would be, rewarded. And this thing happened over a period of close to 9 months. Everybody made his presentations. One of the 4 consultants that we're talking about today got payments of huge sums of money. And now he's coming back to say that there is a balance of $68 million. I mean, we're talking about dollars, not naira. He's asking for another $68 million. And the Governors Forum is saying, look, even the first payment that we made to you was, a little bit shoddy. So by the time we straighten out the facts, we'll now begin to look at those monies that are supposed to be recovered and those that are not.
But if the AGF says, look, they consented, they paid some money, meaning that, look, at the end of the day, they might as well have even paid up all of the money, and the current Governors Forum may not even have had a case. But because certain things happened, they didn't finish payment of all the money. So how could they just turn back and say, no, you can't pay us anymore because that was made in error? They say, look, what has happened until they have a contrary decision. He can't do otherwise.
Well,
is it right
why don't we wait for the contrary decision? Because this matter is in court. The court is the only authority that can determine clearly whether there is reason for payment or not. So why are, very highly placed lawyers afraid of their own platform?
But why do you think that insistence on the part of the AGF is going on? Because if he says, look, I have a basis here in front of me to pay, to make all these payments, and he feels it can be faulted because governors are crying wolf where there is none, he says.
I'm supposed to ask you this question. Why is the AGF so interested that he doesn't want the courts to determine what should happen? That's something that every ordinary Nigerian should think about. I mean, we have a lot of problems in this country. The government is complaining of being cash-strapped, and a government agent is now fighting willy-nilly to get private concerns paid when, government workers are not paid. So I think this is left for the public to decide, because this thing has been coming, and it's becoming very worrisome that even for me as a private citizen to continue to come here to discuss something that should have been done with in 2019.
But the other component of this is that at the moment, the judgment could go either way. So, even though it's hypothesis at the moment, because, I mean, yes, you say we should wait until the judgment comes before either party can decide what happens. But clearly, it could go either way.
I'm a journalist. I should allow you to conjecture that it could go either way. But as far as I know, and with the facts, at my disposal, I know the judgment is going only one way. And that is why, and I'm sure that the people we're dealing with also know that the judgment is going one way. So that's why they're trying to circumvent the, processes of the law and do whatever they want. If, for instance, they are not in power, is he going to continue to fight for these people?
So the monies, we'll go to Lagos pretty soon, but the monies that had already been paid, is the NGF requesting that those monies be refunded, or they're saying, look, we'll just take it from where we are?
Not yet. Not yet. What the NGF is saying, that there is no more money to be paid, and that the monies that have been paid were paid in quote-unquote gross error. So by the time we conclude this matter, we don't know how the next matter is going to take place. But for now, the NGF is saying there is no money to be paid until the courts say, pay them.
My colleagues in Lagos, I've got some questions for you. Go ahead, guys.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Let me begin, Mr. Bello, by asking you this. Perhaps there is a need for some historical background for some people to really understand what's going on here. I remember that as far back as 2013, there was some understanding or judgment or whatever it is that some consultancy consent judgment of more than $3 billion, which which they made commitment to pay, and indeed made part payments between 2016 and 2017. So I'm wondering if you want to give some background to people. What we are talking about is a debt, and it dates back many years. Perhaps some understanding of what those issues are will help some people put this issue between the federal government and the state governors in perspective.
What I can tell you clearly is that these debts are said to be incurred by Algon and state governments over job that was supposed to be done. Some of these jobs were forensic, some were legal, and some are physical. And because a lot of contractors, I mean, I've talked about this over and over again, a lot of consultants have approached states and said, you've made some overpayments, during the, return to democracy. And if you want to recover this money, we're going to help you get them. So a lot of consultants went to different states. And that's why we had, a plethora of claims from various parts of the country. And when this approval was gotten, the NGF advised all contractors, all accountants, all lawyers who have anything to do with this matter to present their cases. And these cases were presented. There was a committee that looked at all of them and decided that, yes, every contractor or consultant would be paid according to his efforts. And until the end of 2018, I think everything was settled. But all of a sudden, some people began to come back to claim that they have a balance of money they are supposed to collect, or some are saying that, well, they haven't been paid. Look, we can't find justification for the kind of claims they are making. So the Governors Forum, with the new leadership, decided that, okay, if you think you have any monies that are left with us, we want you to prove what you had done. Now, if you said you constructed boreholes, bring the evidence of those boreholes around the country. If you said you constructed primary health care institutions, where is the evidence? One of them, I can tell you, is claiming that during the crisis of the NGF, when there was an election, and one of the governors said he won an election with 16 people over 19 people, somebody went around and said he did a review of a 16-page document for this factional chairman of the NGF and demanded for $47 million for that job. The NGF is saying, if you did a job for a factional chairman, go to the faction. The faction does not exist today. If you go to the NGF Secretariat, there is no picture of that man saying he had been chairman of the NGF. So why are we going to pay $47 million for the review of 16 pages of some kind of judgment that was not, in our records at all? So all the claims, as far as the NGF is concerned, are bogus. But if they are that powerful and they insist that the Attorney General is working for them and not for the Nigerian people, so be it.
Mr. Barkindo, this liability is inherited, according to your narrative now, from the past Nigerian Governors Forum. Doesn't this speak to lack of proper handing over of notes between past governors and the current regime of the Nigerian Governors Forum? And we're talking about very important state funds here. I imagine that no governor would want to inherit liabilities. Speak to this functional, or as the case may be, dysfunction in government systems.
I don't see where your idea of a breakdown is coming from. I didn't say there is a lack of continuity. What I'm explaining is that if a payment had been done by the Nigeria Governors Forum and the new leadership of the Nigeria Governors Forum looks at this payment and says this payment is wrong, is there anything wrong with that? What they're saying is the payment was not justified. If you remove money from a certain place and give to someone, and the next resident of that institution says, I've looked at it, and aren't you supposed to say, okay, let's do the right thing? The most moral thing is to say, okay, we're returning the money, or yes, this payment was wrong. If you have evidence that what you were paid is rightly belongs to you, then that's fine. But we're saying when you come back and say there is some other extra payment to be done, and we say, look, the first payment in the first place is even not due to you. How does it become a breakdown in continuity? The NGF has a leadership that is seamless.
What I'm saying
so
is, what I'm saying is, if the last administrations handed over properly, in their notes, then no consultant will come and make false claims, as the case is now turning out to be. I'm sure you would agree with that.
No, I wouldn't agree with that. They handed over properly. The point is, these monies came at the tail end of the previous administration's tenure. And when this new tenure started, they looked at everything that had been done. It's not like it was like they're disagreeing with the previous administration. No, they're saying that when these people came with other, demands, they looked at it and said, hey, wait a minute. Even the last one that you got is not really due to you. But let's go to court and first defray this one that you are asking for. You do not deserve it, and we're not going to give it. But you can see what is going on. This is how I've been in this studio like 4 times, arguing over this same thing that they are supposed to have settled all along. If they can't settle it, they are lawyers. I mean, we have been in court with these people over and over again. Somebody had even gone to the Supreme Court and lost this case and is still there asking to be paid. I mean, who do we respect? The words of the president, the words of the Attorney General, or the courts of law? So we're just trapped in a, messy conundrum. We need to settle this thing in court. We are in court. They are all lawyers. They should let this thing take place in court. And if they are, if they are deserving of this payment, the payment would be done. But they are asking that monies be taken away at source from states and local governments just because, they are powerful. Because what we're dealing with here is, the typical powerful Nigerian man.
So is it a question of how they are asking for the money to be gotten from, or where they are asking for it to be gotten from? That's the main issue here.
I think where they're asking the money to be gotten from is even the, biggest sacrilege. This money belongs to states. It belongs to the masses of this country. And you are asking that because you are powerful and you can reach, the resources of this country, money should be taken at source and given to you. I mean...
So if it was not at source, would they have a problem with it?
Well, where would they get the money anyway if it was not at source? That's why they're using the Attorney General of the Federation to get the money at source. Because states do not have any reason. Like if you have a contract with 13 states and you are asking every state to lose 10 million naira every month for up to 60 months. I mean, what does that say?
But what about those who argue that some of the governors cannot feign ignorance? Because in 2018, those who were there, some of them are still there today. So they cannot feign ignorance that they don't know what transpired because they were part of the consent judgment.
No, there's no such consent judgment, actually. Yes, there's no such consent judgment. What the Attorney General is claiming that there is a consent judgment is what the NGF is saying did not exist. There is another guy who went to court and, filed for, order of mandamus, and merely filing does not mean that it exists too.
Because one of the consultants said he called the AGF after the Governors Forum got to him saying, we agree to this consent judgment. And the Governors Forum wrote the AGF saying, yes, we agree that he be paid. And that was part of the reasons why they factored all that in. I said, well, if that's the case, we might as well go ahead and pay. So is that not true as well?
No, that's not true. If you're listening to a narrative from one side, you should also listen to the other. Because
that's what we're asking.
Yes, the Governors Forum has written to the Vice President explaining that, all these claims to ownership of this money is not true. We had, in fact, last Wednesday, before this Federal Executive Council meeting took place, we got wind that this matter is going to be discussed at FEC. And letters were written by the chairman to the secretary to the government of the Federation, and that was how FEC did not get to approve this money immediately. And that's where, the order by the president that this thing be status quo be retained until courts have concluded this matter. So this, suddenly coming out to say, oh, the money is going to be paid whether the president gives an order or not, becomes curious.
So one of the consultants argued that the Governors Forum got $3.1 billion for his work because he found out that those monies were illegally deducted, for which Governors Forum benefited because of his action. And he's asking for 20% of that money, which the Governors Forum already got. So in this case, what kind of evidence will the Governors Forum be asking that he provide?
I'm believing that that's the same contract, that's the same consultant who is being sued by another consultant that says, this is not your job. This is a job that I had done. And the EFCC had done an investigation and come up with the conclusion that the entire process is a fraud. It's on record.
So now the NGF is saying, look, Mr. AGF, you're wrong. We cannot afford to pay any money. And by the way, the matter is in court, so all should hold on until it's over. That's the position right now.
The position of the NGF is that this matter is in court. Let the courts conclude their work. If there is any reason to pay anybody, the NGF is very willing to pay it.
All right, we'll wait and see how all of that eventually pans out. Mr. Abdulrazaque Bello-Barkindo is the head media and public affairs of Nigeria Governors Forum. Thank you for your time again.
Thank you very much, Chamberlain.
Well, back in a moment. Stay with us.